Forget about everything else that happened through the first 13 games because you did not have the big three out there on the floor.
The big four,
for the first time tonight, you get the big four, including Jaren McCain as Tyrese Maxey returns, Joel Embiid, Paul George also in the starting lineup. And we'll find out about Jaren McCain and what his role is tonight. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers pregame show presented by Coors Light. Maybe we'll be choosing chill at the end of this game. Visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball to get Coors Light delivered or find a store near you. Derek Bodner has the night off. That means they're going to win. Kyle Newbeck, I'm Devon Givens. Brianna's here. All of you in the chat.
Derek's skipping opening night of the season. What's going on here? What the heck's going on?
We got the big four out there tonight. The big three is, of course, in the rundown. But where is Jaren McCain?
Big four.
Big four?
That's it.
He gets
more and more people are saying it, man. And Derek actually said it before he disappeared to wherever he's at right now.
Yes.
In our Discord today was, tongue in cheek a little bit, but we just found out just now Jaren McCain is starting. And I think we were leaning this way, right? We were expecting this to happen based on Nurse starting him alongside Kyle Lowry. It looked like a prototype for what we were going to see with the full strength lineup, but it's a big vote of confidence in Jared, and they're throwing him out there in the very first game where all three of the vet stars are available. He's got to be fired up, probably going to be a little nervous, but we're all a little excited, nervous, fill in an emotion right now for this one tonight.
And I think some of those nerves will also just go into, where do I belong on the floor? My role is now different because of what I have been doing. And you can see the starting lineup here. Bree throws it up on the screen. The Sixers backcourt, Tyrese Maxey, Jaren McCain. The front court, Caleb Martin, Paul George, and Joel Embiid. And that's, as you said, what we predicted. So where does he fit into it is the question of where his nervousness comes into play. Will that affect and impact the offense? Because when Joel Embiid played the first game back after he missed that time, there were some issues with both he and Joel Embiid and their connectivity on the floor against Orlando. He then settled down and he got into a pretty decent groove out there on the floor. We saw the same issue against Miami in the first few minutes, once again, trying to figure out where he belongs on the floor and how to navigate all of that with Joel Embiid. Not Paul George. It was mainly Joel Embiid. But now it's not Kyle Lowry. It's Tyrese Maxey and Paul George and Joel Embiid. So, again, that nervousness may show itself a little bit earlier where there may be an early turnover or two from Jaren McCain where we have to calm ourselves down and not scream and yell every time he makes a mistake because we understand how difficult that is to now have to integrate yourself into three All-Stars plus Caleb Martin, who has been a heavy dose of the Sixers offense thus far, and what it all looks like.
Yeah, so the good news for Jared is even if he comes out and he's a little rattled or can't find his place, he's going to bring value to this team just by being a spacer. I think one thing we need to see early on, and first of all, we don't know how many minutes Tyrese Maxey is going to play. Nick Nurse said yesterday in Memphis at a practice, more than likely going to be limited, right? I would guess somewhere in the 20 to 25 range if I was guessing right now. But how quickly will Nick Nurse go back to the stuff that worked last year, right? Like that. And I think the big thing that has been missing from this offense that we know has been a source of success is that Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid pick and roll, right? Where he picked up right where James Harden left off. They spent the offseason prior to this one working on the pocket passes to the elbow, getting Joel those open jumpers. Or if the team overplayed Joel Embiid at the elbow, Tyrese Maxey has the speed to get to the rim, the ability to draw contact, go to the free throw line, things like that. So I want to see how much they lean into that because as much as it was focused on what Maxey said to Joel about timeliness, which is very funny that there was so much energy spent on it relative to the other stuff. The other part of it that was really important was Joel effectively saying, hey, I don't even know what we're running a lot of the time. I don't know what the plan is here. Well, you can simplify things a lot by just saying, Tyrese, Joel, pick and roll, spread it out. Jaren McCain, Caleb Martin, Paul George, you're spacing the floor, you're relocating, you're cutting off of these guys. And that should hopefully help simplify things for everybody. Obviously, that will help the rookie out the most, right? Because he's still in the first 15 games of his career, but it should allow somebody like Paul George to settle into more of that off-ball, catch-and-shoot type role, and for Caleb Martin to be more of an opportunistic guy rather than someone you need to lean on for offense throughout the game.
Yep. And to be able to see that, and you can kind of picture that now already where that double team does happen to Joel Embiid, and he has to find someone. He likes to cross-court pass. Oftentimes, if he reads it properly and it's not necessarily telegraphed where he's going to this particular player versus one in the corner where it doesn't get picked off and going the other way, he does a pretty good job of locating and finding his teammates around the perimeter, especially when he's not rushing. He's not panicking because of that double team, and he takes his time in finding that open shooter. And that will be the beneficiary of that a lot, we think, at least with the starting unit, should be Jared McCain, that are going to play him a little bit differently if they have done their scouting and looked at the scouting report, that they're not going to sag too much. But Joel Embiid, even in this space, even in this state of who he is right now, he is still Joel Embiid. So the Grizzlies are not going to want to get in foul trouble. They're not want to overextend certain things with this basketball team because they're also shorthanded.
Very shorthanded. Yeah.
Right. So they're going to make sure that while they will pay attention to Jared McCain and even Caleb Martin, they do have to also give the necessary respect to Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George while they're all out there on the floor. So McCain should be the beneficiary again of a lot of pretty decent looks from the perimeter because of the shot creation of all three, and especially the double teams on the low block from Joel Embiid. And getting to your point, we talked about this yesterday, of finding Joel Embiid the sweet spot to get back into his groove. You went back and you looked at a couple of those jump shots against the Miami Heat where he just didn't look like himself.
Yeah.
And for him, we discussed, as good as Kyle Lowry is, he's 38. The speed isn't necessarily there like it used to be, where that pick and pop threat of Kyle Lowry getting to the basket, blowing by his defender, if he doesn't send it back to Joel Embiid, he's going to go for a layup opportunity. That's not there. That burst isn't there like it used to be. And McCain's not quite there yet to figure that part out with Joel Embiid. But because Maxey is who Maxey is, and understanding, picking up right where James Harden left off with that chemistry and that synergy in that particular play for those two, they are dynamic. And that is an easy one for both of them to get their bearings underneath them and get back into a decent game-shaped basketball flow of, you know how we always say it, or how it's always said in basketball, you just want to see the ball go through the hoop. So what do? You go to your sweet spot, you go to your bread and butter. And for these two, it has to be to get both of them going, for sure, that pick and pop. And for Tyrese Maxey, it's also an opportunity for him to, as long as his hammy is good, the step back three, that will be there. Step back mid-range will also be there. And that will open up so many things with the spacing on the floor in the half court for that big three. The big four with Jared McCain. So
we have a comment from Chris that I want to touch on real quick. It says, he asked, any belief Maxey is back sooner than he should be? And so obviously we can't know that, right? Like if they're giving him the clearance to play, that says to us, or it signals to us, that they believe that they're not putting him in danger, right? But it is something that you look at and you say, okay, I hope that they're being responsible with Tyrese, because this could very easily snowball. If he gets hurt again, if he tweaks the hammy, hamstrings are really tough because they heal slowly. I've never personally had a hamstring injury, but when I've talked to trainers, doctors about it, they say one of the challenging things is that, unlike some other injuries where you can get off your feet, or you can use crutches and you can have your arm in a sling and you're just either immobilizing or getting away from it entirely, you really can't completely rest the hamstring. You can sit down and lay down and not exert yourself, right? But when you lean a certain way, you're moving the hamstring. When you go down to tie your shoes or do something as simple as that, you're moving the hamstring. And so it takes a little bit to get back to 100% and to have that full trust in it. It's why I believe Nurse has been clear. Look, he's going to be on a pitch count or limited minutes, I think is the exact phrasing that he used. So we'll have to keep a close eye on him. I would say we almost put the cart before the horse here. We're diving into the X's and O's and the plays and all that. Number one tonight is arguably, how do they respond after the other night, right? Yeah. Where they did have an hour and a half meeting after that game where there were a lot of harsh truths that had to be said. Like It doesn't seem like it was over the top, but a lot of guys had to be confronted on, hey, I need this, you need to do that. And the coaching staff is saying we need better practice habits. Players are saying want to be coached harder. And you go on right down the line. And so Nick Nurse has said, he got asked about it at practice yesterday, something like, how were they today? And he goes, I think it was good. I think we had good energy, but ultimately you don't know what the response is going to be from a moment like that until you're in the thick of it, until you're on the floor, until the game is there. And while admittedly this is a softer matchup than, a normal matchup against the Grizzlies, right? They're down a bunch of guys. They're on the second half of back-to-back. They are one of those teams that tends to, they pull another guy out of the G League or out of their deep bench, and they find ways to, like Taylor Jenkins is very good at plugging and playing different guys into different roles. So Memphis is not going to come out there and roll over tonight. Sixers are going to have to bring, a professional and frankly much higher than professional effort after the meeting the other night. So I hope in those first, 4 or 5 minutes, we see some real intensity from these guys. And maybe more importantly, when the third quarter starts, the pedal is still hitting the floor and these guys are as intense as they were to start the game.
While we don't know, I would guess, I would even go out right now, Kyle, and say that if I were to give a prediction right now, I would say that they win this game tonight because of the meeting that was had, because of the conversations that they did have after the game, and also leaving Miami and going and practicing on Tuesday night, their off night, to get that practice in. It was much needed. And just like the meeting was needed, they needed a practice to wash away the funk and the stink of what took place in Miami and try to figure out, as Joel Embiid said, what are we running? Well, you know what? We don't know what we're running. It's not just the video that we need to run over. We need to go over these things live. And to do that, that's why I believe that they do find a way to bounce back tonight against a depleted Memphis team, even though they have Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. out there and a few other really good players for this team. Ja Morant is out. Zach Edey is also out. They're down some key players here for the Memphis Grizzlies. So I think because of that, and we mentioned it not only after the Miami Heat game, but also in Tuesday's show of simply how much they missed Tyrese Maxey. So with him being out there, the attention has to be on Tyrese Maxey as a defense, or he's going to hurt you. And if he's not knocking down his three and you're not paying enough attention to him or sending that extra help from time to time, he can still put the basketball on the floor. He's going to test out that hamstring and see how good it is by doing what Tyrese Maxey does, and that is putting the ball on the floor, getting to the basket, the step-back threes, filling the lane in transition as well, and using that effectiveness to see if it turns into some positives not only for him but also for this basketball team. So because of that, getting a chance to see, and if they're prideful, like we hope that they are, that big three has been talked about and discussed a lot since the end of the regular season, and we can even forecast it from when Kyle and Derek had their reporting back in February about Paul George and what that could potentially look like. This is the first time that we get to see all three of them on the floor together. No disrespect to Jared McCain, but to see those three together out there for the first time, they're going to want to show that very first showing of who they are as a big three to do it right. And while Joel Embiid may not go out there and get you 33 and 12 to go with Maxey's 25 and Paul George's 22, they want to show whatever they do have that they are able to adjust and get it together, all three at the same time for the very first time, to see what it all looks like and say, this is why we did it this summer. This is why we wanted to do all of this summer. And this is why we are still, even with this terrible record that we have, this is why people still should look at us. And you want to doubt us? Okay, cool. This is why you shouldn't be doubting us. This is why we're going to make a run that we should be making.
Yeah, and look, even if they don't come out and it's like guns blazing, they make 1,000,000 threes and they blow this team out, and frankly, if you're just talking about talent versus talent, they should win pretty comfortably tonight with Memphis on the back-to-back and all these guys out. They just have to win, right? Like it's what we said in the thumbnail for the show, and it's true. At this point, I don't even really care about winning pretty and whether how they win is sustainable and what you need to do. Joel has talked about after the Miami loss, went deep into, I'm trying to figure out, how to play this year, where he is trying to set others up more. And he has said, dating back to training camp, that's kind of the way he wants to go about this season. Is it's not about him, it's about the collective, and trying to do it that way. If what is required to win is giving Joel the ball and him scoring 30 points, that's what you have to do right now. We can worry about, hey, this is the perfect playoff plan later, right? We can worry about the Sixers developing counters and curveballs and playing, matchup zone and full court press and any kind of trickery Nick Nurse wants to run out there after they start getting some wins and after they start creeping back into this Eastern Conference playoff race, because they just simply do not have the luxury of tinkering a whole lot right now, right? We said in the preseason, it was nice to see Nick Nurse try different lineup combinations. It was nice to see them, looking at some of the young guys, looking at some of the new guys and saying, hey, I want to see Yabusele as a 5. I want to see some small looks. I want to do this. Right now, you play whoever you think your 8, maybe 9 best guys are. You play them as many minutes as you can. You play as few lineup combinations as you can, so you can develop that synergy, that chemistry that they need to not just win one game, but to win 3 in a row, to win 5 in a row, to go on a real streak and get back into the playoff hunt. That's what the mentality has to be right now, right? By any means necessary. I don't care how you have to do it. I don't care who has to be the guy. I don't care if you're playing through Joel 50% of the time. If it's Tyrese Maxey having to score 40, get the job done. That's got to be the message to all these guys right now.
Yeah, and if you saw, you guys all jumped in here and you saw our thumbnail text on the image, Kyle, was just win, right?
That's all
just
it
win.
is.
Because they badly need one. They just need one. And then you have that confidence boost to come home against Brooklyn, who, look, they've been playing much, much better, but you should still beat the Brooklyn Nets, especially on your home floor. And you get 1, you get 2, and then the snowball of the positivity of the snowball starts to go in your favor, and you start to feel good about those lineup combinations, about those substitutions that Nick Nurse will have, and about certain things that they run where you might find that pick and pop with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey is back, and that is a threat for them. You might find a few other things that shows itself in these games that they need to get these wins, that things just start to, again, just really starts to flash where we're like, oh, there that is. And we're talking about it post-game with all of you because they need it really, really bad. And they should be able to get one tonight against Memphis. And I hope they give us a good product. Again, it may not be pretty, it may not be beautiful, but that's okay.
Doesn't matter.
Win by 2 points, man.
Get it done.
You win by 2 points because you are deep in the hole, and you need to dig yourself out of this hole, and it has to start now. As you said, Derek's not here. The season starts tonight. What is he doing? He's not here hanging out with us, but I'm sure he'll be paying attention to what's going on with the Sixers.
So I have a question for you as we get into matchups and some of the further down the line lineup things. Do you think the Sixers are going to play a true backup point guard? Because the only real option now is playing Reggie Jackson. For anybody who's watching the show doesn't know, Kyle Lowry has been ruled out for, I believe it's the next 3 games with what the team said is a right hip strain. So he's out for the next few. Jeff Doughton is also out tonight. He is not available. And Doughton is the guy who has gotten the recent minutes behind Lowry as kind of the caretaker point guard type. And with Jared in the starting lineup, look, there are going to be plenty of people who are like, Jared's not a point guard or Tyrese isn't a point guard. One of them is going to be the lead guard at any given time. It's really just a question of, do you want to give Reggie Jackson minutes, or do you lean toward, I trust Jared when Tyrese is off the floor. You give him the ball. He's been a good playmaker on top of the shooting and everything else. And you put more size on the floor. You put a wing out there. I mean, even if it's, I would assume Eric Gordon will get some minutes too, but do you go to a KJ Martin? Do you go to a Ricky Council IV to get some size and athleticism on the floor rather than saying, what does Reggie Jackson have? I'm really interested in that.
And Reggie Jackson is also not a point guard. So
but that's also true.
Right. So, but with it, I do think he dusts off Reggie Jackson.
I think so too.
And give him a few minutes just to see, because whether you think Reggie Jackson is here only because of the relationship with Paul George, or not, Kyle Lowry is going to be out for 3 games. So you want to see quite possibly if you have to use him over these few games. There are no back-to-backs. There's some space between these games.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, you brought Reggie Jackson in here to also play off of a fully healthy, for whatever it is, roster of Philadelphia 76ers surrounding Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George. That's what all of them were brought here for. So while Kelly Oubre is going to come off the bench and do Kelly Oubre things, maybe have a good night, give you 12
Hopefully
to 15,
the good Kelly Oubre things and not the bad
15,
Kelly Oubre things.
Off the bench as a scorer, you're also going to need someone who can shoot, and that is both Eric Gordon and Reggie Jackson. But we've also seen in the Eric Gordon minutes where if he has had the ball and trying to bring it up and initiate things to get it across half court, it's been a bit of a struggle. It hasn't been all that smooth for Eric Gordon either. Reggie Jackson has that experience, and for what he is now at this stage of his career as a shooter, not a scorer, a shooter, he can at times put the ball on the floor and get some things done. He is a shooter. Kyle, you always talk about the more spacing, the better.
Yeah.
And while Kelly Oubre can hit the outside shot, he's more of a slasher. Ricky Council and KJ Martin are not that. So if Yabusele is going to be back in the mix with Andre Drummond, you're probably going to want some more spacing out there. And to dust off Reggie Jackson for maybe 5 to 7 minutes to see if it works, extend that to maybe 10 to 12 because he's hitting the shot, or they are collectively hitting their shot. I think Nick Nurse does, in fact, go to Reggie Jackson at some point.
I'm expecting that. Now, what I would probably rather see is, so if we're saying like these are the Joel minutes and maybe these are the other star bench minutes, I'd like to see Jared McCain alongside Joel as the point guard for basically all those. So McCain and Joel on the ends. In the middle, you're probably playing Kelly, right? Because he can be one of the first guys off the bench. You're probably playing Eric Gordon, if I had to guess.
And George.
So George, I think, might play with Maxey in his minutes.
Right.
But I think that's an interesting pivot point for Nurse right now because with Joel in the state he's in, he's not the Joel Embiid, or has not been yet anyway, who you can just put him on the floor with 4 guys and like they'll probably win those minutes, right? In a normal situation, you'd say Joel, the rookie, a few guys in between who can shoot and maybe defend a little bit, and they'll be fine. You give Paul George to Maxey and you know, play another wing, play Drummond or Yabu at the 5, whatever. I am curious if Nurse views it that way, right? If maybe he says Joel needs a little bit more help right now because he's still working his way back. He doesn't have the trust in his knee. He's still dealing with the rust. Maybe Paul George is attached to the Joel minutes and Maxey is the solo star, although coming back from injury in limited minutes, that's another problem. So if I'm trying to game it out, I would say McCain, Embiid, between them, it's probably going to be like Oubre, Gordon, and maybe Yabusele. We know that Nurse really wants to look at him there.
Yes.
Or maybe it's another wing. Maybe it's Caleb Martin as George goes to the bench. And then Paul George comes back with Maxey, and it looks something like Maxey, George, Oubre, Yabu, and maybe Gordon, maybe, I don't know, it could be KJ Martin, or maybe Drummond plays. We still don't know what's going to happen there. Nurse has not made a firm commitment at that spot. So there's still a lot of variability. The good news is they should be able to keep a star on the floor at any given time. And McCain being this good has helped stabilize these lineups as well.
Well, he's part of the Big Four, so he counts now. He counts. He's a star that you keep on the floor for him. So, but with the Yabusele point that you just brought up is also important for them because they have a lot of active front court players from Jaren Jackson to Aldama. Brandon Clark is back and healthy.
Yes.
So these are some active guys who will get after it on the glass. They will get those loose balls. They will get those 50-50 balls and diving on the floor. That has also been Yabusele. And while he may not have the height and he doesn't leap as high as all 3 of them do, quite frankly, he, though, will put a body on one of them and leaving it up to the teammates to go in there and crash the glass, get those loose balls, get those 50-50 balls as well. As far as the other key matchup for me, Nick Nurse versus Paul George. Minute restriction. Minute restriction.
Well, he should be past it now,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Right. We keep talking about it of unleashing him and letting him be himself. Nick Nurse has to get over, especially with no Kyle Lowry, where he has to shift some of those minutes to Kyle Lowry. If McCain is going to play 25, let's say 25 to 28, maybe it gets higher.
And I was just saying, I would probably take the over on 25.
Yeah. Where are those going? If you want some of those others, if Maxey is on a restriction and McCain is going to play his minutes and Embiid is still on his restriction, Paul George is going to have to be out there for a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
And Nick Nurse is just simply going to have to trust the fact that even with some of those bad shot selections that we talk about, if you go read allphly.com, and if you're a diehard member, if you're not, sign up. Kyle has a great piece up there about how much Paul George is dribbling the basketball and is effective from the 23-24 campaign through these first few games that he has had this 24-25 season.
Too much dribbling.
As a member of the Sixers. So even with the too much dribbling, he has to be out there, though, because of the shot creation that is needed desperately from Maxey, McCain, Embiid, George, and where else are you going to get it? You're definitely getting it from Caleb Martin. He doesn't care. And I don't even blame him, right? So, but you're going to need someone that you can trust. So that's why I say a key matchup, can Paul George defeat Nick Nurse and get those minutes that he deserves tonight against this Grizzlies team?
One quick thing off of that, talking about Paul's shot type and how he's been used so far. One of the other big things when you get Maxey back and you have McCain out there, either one of those guys now can be used as an off-ball shooter, right? Someone who you can run through a couple screens, and if that guy's open, we feel confident in Jared McCain stepping up to knock down a shot. You feel confident in Tyrese Maxey. And so being able to take and make those shots rather than for Tyrese to open this season, it was all pull-up jumpers, step-back jumpers. Yes. And like those are great, right? Every once in a while, you got to uncork one of those. But just because someone can do that does not mean they should have to do that all the time. So that'll apply to Tyrese. That'll certainly apply to Paul George, who you would hope by being moved off ball and being able to focus on the catch and shoot, the spot-up stuff some more, we start to see the Paul George we saw last year and in previous seasons. So we're going to see what happens tonight, but obviously very excited for that.
All right, it's time for we love it. We got to get to it. It's the Bet365 pick segment where we got to let you know
Gambling
how
Givens,
you
baby.
Can make some money tonight. Hey, it's the big three. The season officially starts tonight, folks. So, as we tell you, welcome here to the show, All right, the pregame pick segment is brought to you by Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. There's nothing ordinary about this basketball team right now. So it
never
all starts,
has been.
So it all starts tonight. Bree, let's get to it. We got a same game parlay
here
of 4.
He's going for
4.
Gambling Givens, we need that graphic up there now. Oh, my goodness.
The Sixers are winning. Joel Embiid is under 23.5 points. Paul George over 18.5 because Nick Nurse lets him loose, and he goes after it. And you get the help, of course, of Tyrese Maxey out there. We didn't put him in there because we weren't quite sure at the time we put this together if he was playing. But because of the space, he hasn't even needed space, Jared McCain. He's going to have even more space, over 3.5 three-pointers made, and as the same game parlay as plus 800. And there's also a profit boost of 30%. If you want to go in there and get a little spicy.
Oh, man.
30%. That is our pregame pick segment brought to you by Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Devon picked up a couple of wins and said, plus 800 parlay. Let's boogie.
Let's have it, baby. Season starts tonight. Season starts tonight. Let's get to it. All right.
That would be so funny, especially with Derek on too. Yes. He's like he's the wet blanket on the Devon bets for sure.
Yes, he is.
Here we go. Plus 800. Take it to the bank.
Forget about everything else that happened before this game tonight because the season is officially underway. We appreciate you hanging out with us here on the pregame show presented by Coors Light. Visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Get Coors Light delivered or find a store near you. The game doesn't tip off for about another 12 minutes, so you have time to go order your Coors Light and choose chill. Put your feet up.
And by the way,
get this win.
During the post-game show later, which we hope many of you will show up for, we will have a special guest. The legend, Mark Stein, will be stopping by later.
Mark Stein gets a bell ring right there.
Derek didn't show up, so we replaced him with a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
Mark Stein will be on the show later to talk about, the Sixers and the latest brouhaha and everything else. So Hope to see you guys then. Till then, please,
tie the series up, folks.
Philadelphia.
Tie the series up.
Time to get a W.
Bree, do they get the W? They get the W. Bree said it. She has spoken.
Bree has spoken.
We will be back with you after the game. We'll see you after maybe a Sixers win over the 8-7 Grizzlies. We'll talk to you then. Enjoy the game.
We all silly like the mayor.